Without in any way being conscious of what I was doing, I became the President of the United States.
For the sixth time in American history, a vice president found himself unexpectedly presiding over the White House. The country quickly took to this New England original, and his admirable, thoroughly American values helped heal a nation rocked by numerous scandals that surfaced at the end of Harding's administration. Holding more than 500 press conferences over the course of his term, Coolidge went out of his way to make himself available and was photographed more often than any preceding president. He delivered radio broadcasts that were heard by millions of Americans. And in an age of rapid growth in technology and invention, he was the first president to make a movie with sound.
I have only the most general idea of what it is, mechanically and scientifically, that is being done. But I am assured that a photo film of this scene is to be produced, combining a record both for the eye and the ear, a record that may be described as a speaking, moving picture.
There was something genuine about Coolidge, also, I think, a keen intelligence buried under that silence. And one always has to remember he was Grace's husband. He must have had qualities that he chose not to let show.
For almost a quarter of a century, she has borne with my infirmities, and I have rejoiced in her graces.
In striking contrast to the president, Grace Coolidge had a warmth and natural ease with everyone she came in contact with. She was so charming and popular a first lady that people were willing to forgive her husband for being tight-lipped, rude at times, and prone to private rages. Many observed he often wore a scowl on his face, as if, as one person put it, he'd been weaned on a pickle. Even his humor had a terseness to it. Once a dinner partner told him she had made a bet she could engage him in conversation for 5 minutes. His answer consisted of 2 words: "You lose." The only people he felt truly comfortable around were his family, and he delighted especially in his younger son, Calvin.
He faced a real tragedy early in his presidency. His son died of blood poisoning from a silly accident at the White House, and I expect that added to his taciturnity, his reluctance to speak, his closed-upness in later years.
If I had not been president, he would not have raised a blister on his toe playing lawn tennis on the South grounds, which resulted in blood poisoning. When he went, the power and the glory of the presidency went with him.
Though the shock of his son's death kept him from campaigning, Coolidge was elected to his own term as president in 1924. During the Coolidge years, the economy boomed, leading to the greatest wave of prosperity the country had ever known. But Coolidge revealed himself as a largely passive president, a sharp contrast to his active predecessors Theodore Roosevelt and Woodrow Wilson. Though he successfully balanced the budget and reduced the deficit, his sole positive social program was a minor expansion of federal road building. All his other social policies were negative ones: a refusal to work on behalf of Black Americans and their civil rights, a strong support of prohibition, and a strict and discriminatory immigration policy.
Those who do not want to be partakers of the American spirit ought not to settle in America. America must be kept American.
Virtually off Coolidge's radar screen were the millions in poverty, the elderly, impoverished blacks, and farm workers, Americans who needed government help but didn't find it under Coolidge. He was a president, it was asserted, for the haves and not the have-nots.
Like Jefferson, he was a strict constructionist. He did not think it was the federal government's business to take care of the downtrodden. That was for the states to manage. That was how he understood it. That included not only the poor, but most of the farmers of the country. A real farm depression developed in his time. He did nothing about it. He was the perfect president in an era when people were intent on pursuing their own futures and uninterested in large governmental enterprises, and Coolidge presided to perfection in that situation.
Coolidge's simplistic self-help philosophy and lack of belief in strong government were inadequate to the rigors of the 20th century. Though signs of mounting danger in the stock market were evident by the late 1920s, Coolidge did nothing to avert a looming financial crisis. Instead, at the last moment, he announced his decision not to seek a second full term.
We draw our presidents from the people. It is a wholesome thing for them to return to the people.
During the 4 years before his death, Coolidge would watch as the U.S. economy came apart during the presidency of his successor, Herbert Hoover. And as the Coolidge prosperity went out the window, the preacher of the American way had little left to say.
I am no longer fit for these times. We are in a new era to which I do not belong.